Hi, I'm Nate with Average Jack Archery, here today to talk about how triangles and micro diameter arrows have a lot more in common than you think. So I can't for the life of me remember where I've heard this, because there's no way I can't with all myself, but I can't seem to find a video or an archery talk post about this. And it's the idea that you can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes to 166 and 204 diameter arrows, meaning you have to pick two of the three: light, cheap, or durable. So micro diameter arrows and high FOC have been a real big push the last couple of years. I've sold a ton of them to people in the shop and have helped people online through Facebook, Instagram, and email build a lot of these type of arrow styles. However, the question usually starts out with, okay, I'm looking for a micro diameter arrow that is these: light, cheap, and durable. And I hate to tell the people, you can't get all three. You can pick two, but you can't get all three. And I have a couple different examples here on the table and why this is so important, because a lot of these things have to really focus around price and durability. Light is a little bit different depending on the components or the blends of the carbon, or if it's a fiberglass carbon build arrow, what the weight is going to be. So that varies a little bit more, whereas price and durability is a little less variable. So no matter how you shake it, a small diameter 204 166 arrow is never going to be cheap. And when I say cheap, I mean less than $100 for a dozen shafts. If you want them fletch, that's an even uptick in price. And if you want like a 1,000th or 1,500th straight in a shaft, you're going to pay even more. So when we're talking about the the cheapness of a micro diameter shaft or a small diameter arrow, don't expect it to be like $60 a dozen. It's just not going to happen. So let's start with the first arrow here on the table. This is a Sirius Apollo. Now this one kind of floats between heavy and light, so maybe we'll just call it it's light. It is definitely durable. It is definitely one of the strongest 204 shafts on the market, but it is not by a long shot a cheap shaft. This is a very high proprietary blend. It's a carbon weave, etc., etc. So you're getting a good mid-priced, a mid-level GPI. So it's not super heavy, but it's not super light. Definitely very durable, but it's not going to be cheap whatsoever. The next here is also from Sirius. This is the Sirius Orion. This is a 166, and on the triangle, it nails light. You're talking this 300 spine is in the 8s for GPI. That's fantastic. You can't really get that out of a standard diameter normal hunting arrow. In terms of durability, it is fantastic. This is the most durable 166 arrow I've ever shot. In terms of cheap, run for the hills, buddy. This is not an inexpensive 166 diameter arrow. This is by far going to only pick the durable and the lightweight of the 166 shafts, but it is going to not be a cheap one. Now, you get great components and so on and so forth, and the durability with the price is pretty nice, but it's definitely only going to pick 2 out of the 3. Third one, and an absolute staple in the bow hunting world, is the Easton Axis. Now this one here is a fantastic price point, probably arguably one of the better price 204 shafts still on the market today. It's been around for absolute ever. I've killed a pile of deer with the Easton Axis shaft. However, it is durable and it is a great price point, but it is not light at all. This 204 is a 10.7 GPI, and that is a very heavy 300 spine arrow. Most standard diameter hunting arrows are well under 10, and this one's 10.7. So you get a great durable arrow, you get a great price point on the arrow, but you're not going to get a light one. The next one here is actually something that you can get out of a kit bow from China. This actually comes with the Sanlita Hero X8 compound bow package, which is meant for ladies and kids. So this is actually a 600 spine arrow. It has a glue-in point, pin knock bushings, tiny vanes. It's meant for kids and ladies to shoot with a target setup and just have a good time. So you definitely have a great price point. Light, this whole arrow here at about 29 inches is actually 336 grains, and out of a 600 spine, that's a little bit on the heavy side, but it's still not outlandish. However, durability wise, it is a carbon fiberglass blend, and I have snapped one in half. Not this one, I'm not doing it on camera again. I have snapped one in half by just flexing it. So you get a great light arrow, you get an exceptional price point, but your durability is absolute garbage. Now, it's it's not meant to be great and highly durable, and at a 600 spine, you wouldn't expect it to be. But again, 2 out of 3 of the triangle. Last but not least here is an exceptionally light shaft. This shaft is definitely no longer made anymore. It's a laser light by AFC, which makes carbon arrows that were back in the, I want to say the 80s, made in the USA. Super light 166 arrow. It has the outsert 4-inch left wing, left helical feathers on here. This thing is light. The price point was okay-ish, but man, you can just snap these in half. Like you can just feel how lightweight and brittle these things are, which is why 166 back in the 80s, 90s, and into the early 2000s wasn't that popular. On the back end here, it has to neck down with another sleeve to accept a 166 knock. So these arrows were definitely well priced enough, definitely light enough, but definitely way too brittle. I definitely would not be shooting this. This is definitely a paperweight for me. So since you have to kind of pick your poison, the lesser of the 3 evils, if you will, which one would you really go with? Well, the first thing that I would strongly look at is my budget. We have arrows here that are $100 a dozen to $200 and change a dozen. So really kind of picking your budget, what you really want to strive for, because all of them are going to have exceptional penetration, a 204 or 166. 166 going to have a little bit more, but depending on the overall GPI of that arrow, depends on how thick that overall arrow is. There are certain arrows, like for example, from Vector Custom Arrows, they make their HMR series, which is a 166 inside diameter, but it's just as fat as an Easton Axis on the outside because there's so much carbon and its GPI is really, really heavy for that 166 inside diameter. The outside, though, is basically the same. So deciphering a budget will eliminate or add arrows to those that you can purchase. So for, let's say, for example, you're more set on the lower end of the price range. So there goes your Orion. They're out of the ballpark. We'll get rid of the laser light. It's no longer in the realm as well. So now you're left with something like the Easton Axis, the Sirius Apollo here, which is a little bit cheaper than the Orion, so we'll keep it on here. And I don't have it represented, but the Victory VAP is another excellent 166 diameter arrow. Definitely going to be on the lighter side, definitely going to be on the cheaper side, but is not as durable as, say, that Orion over there. So now you've got to look at it and say, okay, you basically are down to something like these two 204 diameter shafts. We'll get this Chinese one out of the way. You're looking at still 2 very different price points. Your Apollos are going to be a little bit more expensive. They're going to come with better components. They're going to come with a little bit tighter tolerances, and they're a full carbon blend, whereas the Easton Axis is a carbon and fiberglass. One is made overseas, one is made in the USA. You get the idea here. Now you're just kind of splitting hairs of hairs. But if it were me, I would definitely knock out the overall GPI first. I don't get super wound about FOC. I have videos on that. I would much rather have a durable shaft that's at a strong price point that I can afford, and then when I snap them, purchase again in the following year or 2 years down the road and not cry tears of blood that I'm replacing arrows that I'm snapping on whitetails in the woods. Usually the lighter you go, and particularly if it's not in the price point of the Orions, the lighter you go, the more brittle and the less durable it's going to be. So quite frankly, I would like to stick with a 166 or a 204 diameter arrow that's in the high 8s to mid 9s of GPI. That's going to give me a roughly the same weight as a standard diameter hunting arrow, which usually is in that mid 8s to low 9s, mid 9s GPI, but it's going to be in a smaller, denser package. So I'm going to get that better penetration. I'm going to get good crosswind drift down range, but it's going to be at a little bit better price point. It's going to be a little bit more affordable, good component system to it, so on and so forth, and still give me a quality arrow build without having to add too much upfront in terms of, big broadheads that are $100 a pack, over the top insert systems, which if you want to do something like that, go for broke. That's totally up to you. But personally, as somebody who works in a shop and helps people build arrows, I want something that they can go down to their local shop or find easier online from other shops, that they don't have to then, learn a new system or try a new challenge. They can use 100 grain heads, 125 grain heads, maybe a little bit beefier insert, so on and so forth. Keep the overall cost more manageable, give you a really repeatable, high tolerance, high quality shaft, and give you a lot of penetration out of a 204 or 166. So that's all for this video. If you have any further questions that I might not have addressed here on this 204 166 build video, go ahead and drop them down in the comments section below, or hit me up on Facebook and Instagram, send me an email, averagetecharchery@gmail.com. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation. Get out and sling some carbon, and we'll get to see you next time.